Well, as I'm sure the whole world has been thinking about Paris this week, I've had a really hard time with this one. And so I've been wanting to use my practice to somehow be able to open up my heart to the situation. And the one piece that keeps coming around that I wanted to really kind of share with you today, my process with it, is how young they are, the perpetrators, At the beginning of their life, what was it that compelled them to go so far, far away from a life that wasn't even yet experienced? So I really want to I had to work on this. I wanted to bring some sort of humanity in my thinking about them. I didn't want to demonize them. I didn't want to cast them out of my heart. So I wanted to look at them, at where they were in the time of their life, and how the things that all of us as human beings who have traveled through our life, through adulthood and beyond, what are the emotional and psychological and mental things that we have to deal with when we're in our 20s that, given certain circumstances and causes and conditions, could take us totally, totally wrong way. So I wanted to also share some of the things that people have been studying these young radicalized youth for about maybe 15 years now. And they're starting to garner some little threads about what might be setting them off besides all the other causes and conditions that they're dealing with. And, we have this thing in the community here that every once in a while we kind of go, we're so surprised how we even made it through our 20s. That we were so foolhardy, so reckless, so careless that we say the fact that we're alive to be able to tell these stories and show some of our little scars is amazing. So I'm putting that in my heart as one of the sort of foundations on the mind of a 20-year-old, because I know what my mind was like when I was in my 20s, and it was really, wild. So and I wanted to just give some of the general 20-year-old scenarios. And this is cross-culturally. We've all been through this, whether we live in Africa, whether we live in China, whether we live in Georgia. We all experience this as being in our 20s. So first of all, I remember so much having just incredibly restless mind, restless body, restless emotions going up and down, exploring my sexuality, reckless because I thought I was immortal. I mean, sailing off of cliffs with skis on and going out with people and staying overnight with men that I didn't even know, driving home in a car that I don't even remember getting into. I mean, some of the recklessness, because I really felt that I was immortal. I mean, I think these are characteristics of people who are in their late teens, 20s, influenced very much by our culture. And it's not just our own culture, our own religion, our own politics, but now it's the culture of the world. And when we go on the internet and we go on Facebook and we see these things popping up, we have no idea whether they're true or not. Not only do we not know whether they're true or not, but we can make up and create any kind of persona we want to show the world, something that doesn't even exist. So this is the paradigm that these young men are living in as well. All sorts of stuff coming up in the internet. They don't know truth from fiction. During this time, we also pushed the envelope of the values and the conformities of our parents and the society. I was continually pushing up against my parents, what they said I should do, where I think I should be. The societal pressure of where we were supposed to be in our 20s. I mean, you're 23, you should know what you're doing, right? And just imagine being a young man who has no idea what he's doing, just grasping and trying to hold on to something to give him some sense of self, some sense of identity. The peer influence, powerful. The search for identity, the need to belong, the need to be part of something bigger than yourself, to be part of a cause. Whether it's just going out and seeing how fast you can go down the slope on a pair of skis with a whole bunch of other crazy young people, there's something about belonging and being in line with people of like mind, like attitudes, like passions, whatever it might be. And finding out about ourselves, does what I say and think matter? Which gets to be a little bit of a conundrum because what I thought mattered changed all the time. So it was like changing my shoes from one week to another. I had a strong passion about this. Next week I had a strong passion about that. So there was no stability. I was learning about myself. I was transforming my mind. I was growing up. But boy, it's a tough time to be alive, and we've all made it. 99% of human beings make it through that part of life. But what happens if those kind of qualities and states of mind, if you don't get through them, and something happens, something terrible happens, and when you put that onto some of the cooperative conditions that some of these young men had in their life, living in Europe and living in America, you can see how this could become really, really deadly. So a lot of them, they're finding out that they're second generation or third generation coming from Saudi Arabia, Algeria, Sudan, Turkey. Their families have emigrated, so they're now been born there, or they've been naturalized soon after they've been there. Some of them are recent converts to Islam. Okay, so they're fairly new to the practice of what it means to be a Muslim. And there are currently 4,500 of them in North America and Europe that they have deterred, either at the airports or crossing borders. That doesn't include the ones that have made it to the Middle East, the ones that believe strongly in this jihad. They're generally between 17 and 29. But they're in this fragile, transformative time of young adulthood. Now, some of the scholars on this topic have got some common threads here, and these are some of the things that exacerbate the struggles that happen during this time in human life. Well, first of all, they have a desire to take action, to do something significant, something that's really common for a lot of young people. That's great. That's sort of like visioning and aspiring. At the same time, they have a tendency to see the world in very, very black and white terms. And looking at this through the Dharma is that they want to be part of a cause that's virtuous. But because their minds are not clear and so confused, they have no idea what that is. They have no idea what's virtuous. They have no idea what's non-virtuous. They're just looking for some sort of cause, and it's got to be either this or it's going to be that. There's no place in between. That a lot of the European Muslim youth, second or third generation, feel really disenfranchised in a society that even after 2 or 3 generations, they're still not quite fully accepted as Brits, as Germans. I mean, you don't look like one. You got dark hair, you got dark eyes. You're still looking you're a little bit on the outside of the periphery of what a British person looks like, or what a Scandinavian person looks like, and that they don't feel quite fully accepted, and so they turn to Islam because it's sort of a badge of identity. This is something that they do know, especially if their families are still very much practicing. They're practicing Muslims, that they really clutch that as part of their identity, their religion. And then, of course, they identify with other alienated youths in their communities. Either they're the poor and working, or they're the middle class educated, all sort of on the periphery, all feeling somewhat disenfranchised, alienated from the culture that they were born in. And then they're joining with other alienated youth, either through the mosques, or some of them are in prison for crimes, or in some of the schools. And so they're just bonding, they're belonging. They generally, sort of talk about this stuff. They go online together. They do some of this groupthink that starts to grow in their little alienated youth groups. So there's a lot of identity crisis, segregation, misinformation about Islam and Western foreign policy. So once again, the internet's giving you whatever you want to hear. What is the truth in all of this anyway? What's really going on? And then, and the other thing, and this came from the folks who really deal with the counter-terrorism policy making, the ones that are trying to think how to counteract this and how to cut it off at the pass, is that this one scholar said it was really important to note, to take into consideration the impact of foreign policy perceptions by these young potential radicals. In the US and European troops, they go into these Muslim countries behaving a lot like colonialism all over again. Really getting into the power structures of these countries, influencing the governments, the presidents, the kings, or whoever. And that increases the radicalization. These youths really think that there's some serious interfering going on with the ways and the culture of people. And that a French Muslim man, let's say, who had seen the attacks in Paris, could be absolutely appalled by what happened, by people like him in his heart, And then to hear about these fighters going off and bombing some city in Syria, it's not going to make him feel any better. I mean, that's the part he's going to connect to. He's not going to connect to the victims in Paris. He's going to connect to the civilians in Raqqa. So this is no way of me trying to condone this is abhorrent behavior. But I wanted to be able to see where their minds and hearts were, to separate from me the behavior which is so atrocious and the sentient being who's so confused, deeply manipulated. I mean, these extremists, my personal feeling is they know what these young men, what they're longing for, what their needs are. And they're going for it. They're going for the jugular here. And these young men are just holding on to somebody who hears them, respects them, tells them they're wonderful. There's a reverence there. There's an acceptance there. They're just being sort of taken over the waterfall. They are mesmerized by the ideology, and it really empowers them, gives them a sense of purpose, as bizarre as that sounds. So, I don't want to demonize anybody. These are suffering beings, horribly manipulated. I just think not only are the young people, but I think everybody involved, and this is a long history of religious intolerance way back when, and that in front of me, I see the first and second noble truth. The truth of origin, the dissatisfaction, the uncertainty of life, and as long as we grasp onto the self, and we make an identity out of it, we can go here. We can go and make a cause about it. We can go and kill other people about it. We can objectify them, take the humanity away from them, and take their lives and not have a problem with it. So for me to cultivate the compassion in my heart and to be able to see the third and fourth noble truth is to understand that I have to look in my own mind to see the enemy within my own self, how I judge people way too quickly by their behavior, totally disregarding that this is a suffering, confused, sentient being who has Buddha nature, who has the capacity to grow loving kindness and tolerance in their own minds. But due to the causes and conditions, also bring into my mind the power of the dependent arising of what's going on here, karma going on and on, the causes and conditions, the cooperative conditions, taking these young men at such a young age and destroying them, having them destroy themselves and taking people with them. And to see that, may we, because we have the preciousness of the Dharma in our minds. And for me, I keep saying, Semke, use it for your determination to be free. Use it to develop your compassion. Use it to see the times when you judge people by their behavior, not realizing that there's a sentient being here that's suffering. And that's for the government, that's for the guys in the plains, it's for the people in the city, it's for everybody. We're all under the control of ignorance, afflictions, and karma. And this is how it manifests in an extreme way. To open our hearts to say, may we become Buddhists quickly. Because I don't have the skill. And we're doing the same old, so nobody else in the world right now has the skill to do anything but the same old. So may we be able to develop the wisdom along with the compassion, to be able to find the deep-hearted causes of this. We have some of them. And to be able to find the solution. They're too precious to lose. Too precious to lose.